Once this storm got into the Gulf, a lot could change, and as is often the case over the last 18 hours, a lot has changed. We spoke yesterday about the most likely scenario being that this storm hit landfall around Port Sulphur, Louisiana. At this point, we see this storm is currently approximately 200 miles southeast of New Orleans. It has slowed considerably from approximately moving at 12 miles an hour to closer to 8 miles an hour. And therefore, at this time, the course of the storm has, or the projection of the course of the storm has ticked to the east, which would have landfall of a high Category 1 hurricane, Sally, with sustained winds between 85 and 90 miles an hour hitting Biloxi, Mississippi. That is the latest projections. Things are continuing to change. Obviously, with the slowing of the storm, that is concerning. The longer and it stays out in the Gulf of Mexico, the more and higher the likelihood is that it continues to grow in size and scope and severity. But as it currently exists, it is anticipated that it will hit landfall at 2 a.m. Wednesday morning, right around Biloxi, Mississippi. The storm surge projections continue to be worrisome, with anywhere from 5 to 8 feet overall coast surge. In Hancock County, that could be greater than 9 feet. In Harrison County, that could be greater than 6 feet. And our current projections are in Jackson County, that storm surge could exceed 3 feet. Much of the largest storm surge that we are anticipating, and this is not unusual, is in the tributaries that are leading into the Gulf, those that feed into the Bay of St. Louis, the Biloxi Bay, and of course, the Pascagoula River. So if you live upriver, it is likely that we're going to see significant water situation. We are continuing to be very concerned about the amount of potential rainfall. We mentioned yesterday that there was the potential of 15 to 20 inches of rain in a short period of time. At this point, it is anticipated that we could exceed 20 inches of rainfall on the coastline, particularly in Harrison and Jackson counties. But we could see as much as 15 inches of rain in a very short period of time in Hancock, Pearl River, Stone, most of Harrison, most of Jackson, and most of George County. As it currently is projected, the storm would enter it in Biloxi. It would continue to be projected to shift to the east once it hits landfall, and would likely be out of our state sometime fairly quickly after hitting landfall. But even so, we are expecting significant amounts of rain, as much as 10 inches or more in Pearl River, Stone, Greene, Perry, Forest, and Wayne counties, as much as 6+ inches of rain in Lamar, Forest, Jones, Wayne, Jasper, and Clark, and in excess of 4 inches of rain in Marion and Kemper counties. So regardless of this particular event, we are going to see significant rainfall, which leads to significant water challenges. We do have hurricane warnings, hurricane watches in effect, Hancock, Harrison, Pearl River, and Jackson hurricane warning. We also have tropical storm warnings and watches in effect in many of those counties that I just mentioned. And so again, while this storm has ticked to the east overnight, it is still anticipated that we are going to bear the brunt of this storm. It is possible that over the next several hours that things will change, and as they do, we will continue to update you, the public. But for now, if you are south of Jackson, and particularly if you are south of Hattiesburg, prepare now. Now is the time to prepare. Continue to monitor the weather, but be prepared for the worst case scenario, because with this storm slowing from 12 to 8 miles an hour, it could get worse before it gets better. We'll just have to see. I have met this morning with our team. Obviously, We have behind me Director Michelle and General Bowles of MEMA and the National Guard. I'll give both of them the opportunity to give you an update on our planning. Just a couple of things that I will mention. I also met with Dr. Dobbs earlier this morning. I would just point out that sometime within the next couple of hours, we will have staffing at the Medical Needs Shelter in Stone County. The Department of Health runs that facility. It was built post-Hurricane Katrina. That's going to provide shelter for those that have special medical conditions. They do a fantastic job. The Department of Health will do a great job doing that, and I'm very confident of that. I do want to point out there has been some talk on social media and otherwise that the gas stations on the Mississippi Gulf Coast have run out of fuel. Calm down. That is not the case. There are individual gas stations that, because of a surge in demand, have run out of fuel, but I want you to know that all terminals are currently functioning. There are refueling tanks that are en route to those fueling stations that are not currently able to get gasoline, but there are plenty of service stations of gas stations along the Gulf Coast that do have fuel, and those that do not will be refilled in the coming hours. So that is not a major risk at this time, but certainly something that we are monitoring. Before I turn it over to Director Michelle, I do just want to point out that we are reporting 145 new cases of COVID. Planning for a Cat 1 or Cat 2 hurricane is always complicated. Planning for it during 2020 and the life of COVID makes it even more challenging. I did speak with Governor John Bel Edwards a little earlier this morning of the state of Louisiana. As you all know, we work very closely to help them during Hurricane Laura, and with this storm ticking more and more to the east, he offered the same help for us, and we appreciate that. But the most important thing we can learn from the state of Louisiana is the lessons learned from sheltering and things such as that in a very challenging environment of COVID. We know that Tropical Storm Sally is likely to become Hurricane Sally, and that's going to create a challenge. But with respect to COVID-19, we do have 145 new cases reported today. We have, unfortunately, 9 new fatalities, but all 9 of those new fatalities are actually from vital records. And so we have, for the first time in many months, taken our 7-day average of new cases of COVID below 3,000. According to the White House, we are no longer in the red zone of COVID-19 in Mississippi, which is a 7-day period of at least 100 cases per 100,000. That is a positive development, but that is because of the efforts of the people of this state. You have stepped up and you have made a difference. And the only thing I want to point out with respect to the coronavirus is I simply want everyone to understand that now is not the time to let your guard down. The hurricane is going to be a challenge. We are going to continue to work through it, but we want people to continue to wear your mask. We want people to continue to socially distance. We want people to continue to be aware, not only weather aware, but also virus aware. And certainly as I look out around this particular room, people are continuing to do that, and for that I am grateful. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Michelle, which will talk to you about sheltering and other specifics with respect to what is soon to become Hurricane Sally.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Just to point out a few things, just want to talk about the risks that we're looking at here. They really have remained unchanged from yesterday, and that's flash flooding, wind gusts, and tornadoes. With that type of combination of weather, we can expect a large number of power outages. So individuals need to be prepared for being without power for some times. As you all know, we have exceptional line crews here in the state of Mississippi and along the southern part of the United States that will do their best to restore power to you as quickly as possible. As this storm has shifted to the east, it has taken some portions of northwest Mississippi somewhat out of this severe weather, but if you are in the southeastern portion of the state, you can expect to experience all of these conditions of flash flooding, wind gusts, and tornadoes. So pay attention to your areas, whether you fall into a hurricane watch warning, whether you fall into the flash flood or storm surge, pay attention and please take action likewise. Talk about sheltering operations. I've gotten a lot of questions about sheltering operations during a COVID environment, and I want to make sure to be very clear here. Shelters will be open and available if you need to shelter during the storm. Congregate shelters will be open. I will point out, we have messaged throughout this whole hurricane season. We are asking you to avoid shelters if you have other options available to you, to evacuate out of the affected area, to go with a family member, a friend, or move out of the area and get your lodging in some other ways. If you come to a congregate shelter, you will be required to wear PPE, no questions about it. If you're in a congregate shelter, you will be required to wear PPE, and if a shelter becomes maxed out from the CDC standards, and another shelter will be made available to you. Currently, right now, we've got shelters available in all of the lower 3 coastal counties, either on standby or currently already open. Hancock County does have one open now. Pearl River County will also be opening a shelter, possibly 2, later this evening to prepare for evacuees and from their own county. As the governor has already mentioned, the medical needs shelter will be open and operational today at 3 o'clock in Wiggins for those that would require medical needs. We are prepared to respond with our assets accordingly. And one final comment to make is that I realize it is frustrating when you hear about a storm coming about and ends up not being quite as severe, but I want to remind everyone, as the governor mentioned, this storm has changed. Even since the update that we had at 5 a.m. this morning, one thing that I've noticed consistent about this storm is that the wind speed projections increase by about 5 miles an hour every time we get an update. So the potential for this hurricane to make landfall in Mississippi at greater as a Cat 1 does still exist. So please be mindful and take actions accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Michelle. At this time, I'm going to ask General Bowles to give us an update, and then we'll do questions.
This morning, the National Guard briefed the governor that we have our engineering assets in place, we have our aviation assets in place, and we have security assets in place, which would be MPs and other soldiers. What's a little bit different about this storm is that we've postured some responsiveness at Camp Shelby, Mississippi. Yesterday, we were thinking we might be able to pivot down 59, but this also gives us the ability to pivot down Highway 98 or Highway 49 if needed. In addition to that, we still have our assets on the coast to respond to any coastal needs. With that said, we've reached out to our neighboring states. They've reached out to us with the National Guard support, so we've got plenty of National Guard support available. And at this point, Governor, we also are able to support the COVID response without any change in our support there.